Kia ora koutou. Welcome to this meeting of the Community Grants Funding Subcommittee. I'd like to ask Councillor Joblin, please, to read the Karakia. Thank you, Kate.
Oh, start again. I oha ki runga ki a ranganui, I oha ki raro kia papatuanuku. Turakina nā mea, kina kino ki te paiatia. Uhia mai o karawai aroha, hei taonga mamato. Ka puta ki te whaiau ki te ao marama. Humie huie tai ki. It's te wiki o te reo Māori, so you don't get the English translation this week.
Thank you, Kate, for reminding us Māori Language Week as well. And so I think with that, very appropriate that we stand and sing our Waiata, please.
Can we all put our microphones on so that public...
Have yours on, perhaps? Do you want to lead us, Councillor Charlotte?
Te awa tupua mai I te kahui maunga ki tangaro ka wakapiria mai kona piringa hene ako tama upoko tupoho po te kie ko te awa ko te awa ko erere te awa tupua.
Not bad. It's all the practice that we've been having.
Thank you all. Thank you. That was lovely. Thank you. Welcome to members of the public through live stream. And anyone that's going to rush through the doors. Apologies. I have got an apology from the Deputy Mayor, Helen Craig. Any other apologies? Not that I've received. I'll just double check that. Apologies. Okay, I'm just going to move the apology from the Deputy Mayor be accepted, and no, yeah, I'll just accept the apologies we've got from the Deputy Mayor. Have I got a? You want to second that, Councillor Fallon? Thank you. All in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. Any declarations of interest for this afternoon's meeting?
Yes, I have a couple of conflicts of interest in relation to a couple of community organisations. The Women's Centre, our firm does their accounting work. Youth Services Trust, same thing, and same with Life to the Max Trust. And the addition there is that I'm also a trustee of that trust, have been for 21 years. Rua tuko mātahi.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? I guess just in regard to how I think we handle those, any advice from the Chief Executive? It would seem like in regard to the accounting, Kate's accounting firm being, that's just a interest, but a conflict with the Life to the Max Trust. I guess if we were to get into any discussion on any particular application, withdraw them.
Yeah. So through you, Chair, the safest way to deal with it would be for Councillor Joblin to step away from the table if any of those matters are being discussed in any detail.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think otherwise, unless things change, there will be one resolution that, but we're noting the amounts. So, it's fine.
Through you, Chair. Again, safest bet would be to step away from the table entirely, but if all you're doing is noting an amount, then I don't see there being any potential for gain. So, no issue with Councillor Joblin being
I'm
involved
happy
in
not
that
to
part.
vote, just abstain from the vote. I think it's probably the safest course.
Okay, thank you for that. We've got no public forums or deputations, correct? And we've just got an additional information of the Community Contracts Assessment Panel declines. I'll just move that additional information be accepted. Seconded by Councillor Joblin. Any discussion? All in favour?
Right.
Against? That's carried. Thank you. All right. So that takes us to the recommendations. Sorry, Lauren, would you like to give a bit of a it's kind of in our paper, but perhaps just a bit of the background behind the process that's gone on to date, and anything else you'd like to say to us? Thanks.
Well, kia ora, and thank you for the opportunity to present the community contracts funding assessments today. We've had the community contracts for a while now. I've been managing this for 9 years, and in 2019 we put a policy in place that aligned our community contracts with Leading Edge and Safer Whanganui. We have this year we had 33 applications. We've got two parts to the community contracts funding. The first part is the projects of significance, which has got $50,000 in it. Projects of significance are for new funds, so for new applications, for a new project, so it can't be for an ongoing piece of work or something that's already started. So, and that's $50,000 between two organisations, with a guarantee that they will get the funding as long as it's available for 3 years, and that they complete all reporting requirements. So this year we've got one of the projects in year 3 and one of the projects in year 2. The other part of the fund is just the general fund, and there was $100,000 in that general fund, and this year we had $389,000 worth of applications for that $100,000. All funds, so we've got a funding assessment panel which is made up of myself, Harriet McKenzie, and this year Caroline Arrowsmith joined our funding assessment panel, and we sit down and review all of the applications and look at whether so I look at the reporting that they have done if they've received an application previously, and we look at that across the criteria that sits in the policy as well, and make our decision based on that. So unless there are specific questions.
Specific question.
Councillor Peter?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Lauren, for my own clarification as a new councillor, can the criteria, there is 5 of them, is there an evaluation sheet that sits underneath that?
Sorry, yes, so the assessment panel, we have an evaluation sheet that looks at where they link to Leading Edge, so the 5 parts of Leading Edge, where they link to the 4 goals in Safer Whanganui, and then we look at have they sought other funding, what's their partnerships that they talk about in their application, demonstrated need to the community. So is this for a very small group, or will this project be for a large number of people? And the outcomes that they have put into, they need to put outcomes into the application as well. And then we look at if they've been funded before, we look at some of their funding history. So how was their reporting, and their information that they put in the rest of the application. So we do have quite a in-depth evaluation form that we use.
And the second part for my clarification then is, how do we audit what their reporting is?
So when people have a contract, then or get granted the funding, I sit down and work with each of the individual organisations. Particularly if they're new organisations, then I'll spend a little bit of time with them coming up with the performance measures. We want to make sure that we're not creating more work for them. So what else are they collecting? What information are they collecting? And how is that going to be helpful for them and helpful for us to be able to show that they are making a difference? So we use results-based accountability as part of our reporting criteria, which asks questions like, how much have you done? How well have you done it? And is anyone better off? And is anyone better off? We look at 4 parts to that criteria. Have we increased their skills and knowledge? Have we increased their awareness? Have we changed their behaviour? And have we changed their circumstance? And so some of those, changing circumstances is one of the big ones that creates some really good change in our community. It's also one of the harder ones to do for some things. So an example of that would be, they might be running a program on driver's licensing, and 20 people attend the program. They don't have a driver's license when they start the program. They complete the program, and 20 people have a driver's license at the end of the program. And so we've had a huge change of circumstance for 20 people that didn't have something when they went into doing that piece of work. So all of that is, we sit down and discuss what their outcomes are and put all of that into the performance measures and agree a contract with them, and then they report on that contract. So reporting is, if they get over $5,000, we ask them to do a progress report at a 6-month period, and then they provide an annual report. And I review all of those reports, and then when it comes to this process again, I sit down and look at their reporting against what was agreed and look at that against their new application.
Okay. Thank you. It sounds very robust. And thank
Thanks.
you for the report.
Thanks, Lauren. Kate?
Thank you. Thanks for the report, Lauren. It seems to me to be really well distilled, you know, the process that you've been through, and then kind of boiling it down to a summary for each of the applicants. So thank you for that. And I guess, like, I think I've got about 3 questions. My first question is more of a general nature, and this may be more related to the distillation process. And in particular, my question is about the link to leading edge strategy. Many of the applicants, the comment made is that it's have not linked to the goals, or not a good link to the leading edge strategy. I mean, taking into account the fact that we're reviewing it at the moment, and no doubt, without wanting to preempt what that process is going to throw up, there might be some more clarification around how these community outcomes might better link through to council strategy. But can you comment on that at all, just to kind of help me figure, well, if it doesn't link to the strategy, is it the strategy that's wrong, or is it the fact that it's the community organisation is not on the right track?
No, so yes, I can comment on that. Look, we've looked at this particularly last year and over the last 12 months, and thought we're coming up to a review, so it's a good time to be able to review. You know, we're going to move away from leading edge to the next stage, and so we'll be able to bring that differently into this application process. I think when we put it's not well linked, it's because they often they're looking at the words on the the goal of Leading Edge and not the part of it. So they could link so I look at it and I think, okay, they haven't linked the words very well here at all, but actually if I dip into the Leading Edge, I can see where they fit really well in here. They've just looked at the words and linked their application, or sometimes linked their organisation to the goal or the strategy, and not, so it's there, we can see it's there, but they just haven't been able to link it.
I'm with you. So what I'm hearing is that the application in itself does not make that good a links, but when you look at it, what the organisation is delivering, you can see how it fits quite well under the strategy. Great, thank you. My next two questions are kind of bundled into one, and they relate to the Pride Wanganui application and the Woven Whānau applications, where the applications are for quite large sums of money and some quite lofty goals, and your recommendation is that we fund a very modest amount. And I'm just wondering, the fact that we are funding a modest amount and to achieve the lofty goals that these organisations, very appropriate goals, I'm sure, it's only a very small proportion of that overall application. What does that mean for us, do you think, in terms of, like, will that mean that the organisation needs to change its goal? I mean, it's going to be very, like if we use the Pride Wanganui example, they want to employ 2 people, the application's for 95,000, 5,000 will go there a little way, but what if they can't get the rest of the funding to achieve that goal?
So I guess there were a number of organisations that put in for large funding this year, and so I went back to a number of them and said, we've got a limited fund. You've asked for an amount that's quite outside what we would generally give in the community contracts process, and supported them to, if there was some other processes to look at. The other, I guess it's the balance of, if they've asked for 95 and we give them 5, is that almost not worth giving? Is it better off to give them nothing than give them 5? We had quite a lot of debate around that, and so for a couple of them, we were thinking if we gave them a start, that might support another funder will come in and go, well, actually, you've got a little bit, and we'll come in with some more. But if they went to the next funder with nothing,
Yep.
then they're less likely to get anything from the next funder potentially.
Yep. Thank you. It's a really good explanation. So what does that do for how do we translate that into a year's time when we're looking at the outcomes? They've had our 5,000, they haven't been able to attract enough funding to do the goal. So what will our response be to that?
So when I sit down and meet with them, the outcome that we put into the contract with them will be based on a lower outcome based on the money. So we won't be asking them to report on employing 2 staff and achieving all of the things that they achieved, because our contribution is only a small part of that. So I'll sit down and have a conversation with them around what that might look like.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate. Good questions, important questions. This is actually a really important process for our community and for council. Lauren, I just wondered if you could, in regard to funding IQ, we read on page 9, we're reading about 5 organisations, if I'm reading right, the existing groups, and then you talk about new groups coming on board. So this application, the recommendations, Funding IQ has asked for $10,000 and they've been recommended for $10,000. I'm just going to read a little bit that from what I'm reading, they provide innovative online platform. They provide expertise, resources, systems to help secure and retain funding partners. Doing so enhance the valuable service they provide in our community. Was formerly the Given Group. I guess my question is, could you just clarify the 5 groups you're reading? Are they going to continue? They've had some support. It would be really quite good if you could possibly elaborate any more on, how that has helped them. Are they the ones to be supported in this next round, or do you know of any? Is it like another 5?
We've been funding HQ for 4 years now, and each year they've supported 5 organisations. Sometimes those organisations have stayed right through. Sometimes they've dropped off because it's a capacity issue for all of the volunteer organisations to have someone that can dedicate some time to doing this online program. So the program's designed to help them write better funding applications, not necessarily better funding applications for this fund, but general funding applications that might get them better funding in a different place. A number of the organisations have gone on for a second year. Not all of them have, so some of them drop off. And last year we had 2 organisations on there, and the others dropped off. And every year we go to the organisations and we say, we've got this process available. You need to make a commitment to be eligible for this, and we explain to them what the commitment is. Funding HQ do a really intensive onboarding process with them as well, and talk to them about the expectations. So we provide all of that up front, and generally we've looked at the organisations that have been applying for community contracts, and we put them forward to get support. So there's been a number of them that have completed that, and I have had really, really good feedback from Life to the Max, from Te Orohau. Hakiki Street is another one. They've been through the process as well. So the organisations are finding it really valuable. It helps them to bring everything that they do into a really succinct process to be able to put in a comprehensive application to other funders.
Thank you. Just in regard to that last bit, like, people move on from organisations, obviously, because there may be some staff, but largely, often, a lot of voluntary help. Do you know, how can we ensure that information, that big knowledge bank, and what resources gets kind of passed on? Do we have any IQ ourselves over that?
No, I guess that the resources stay with the organisation once they've been able to build that picture, and so that would stay with the organisation regardless of whether the person doing the training had moved on or not. All of these community organisations rely heavily on volunteers, and there is a lot of volunteer movement. There's also, we're struggling to get volunteers into a large number of these organisations now, so it is a tricky one.
And to look, you've kind of mentioned that, I understand some of these groups just will have all the best intentions to go right through the process, but just may not be able to. I guess, has anything told you from the past, because it looks like it's 5 organisations, and I guess it might break down to about $2,000 worth of support each. Like, if we felt like, going forward, we're putting 10,000 into this year, and only 2 organisations actually got the value, and you could say there's $5,000 to $6,000 of money that could possibly go to help some other organisations that we've, how does that? Do you keep a good close eye on that? And I guess look for other funders, like other organisations.
Yep. So if someone drops out early, we stack them up with another one and have that same conversation. As I said, we've worked really hard at the onboarding process to really make sure that when organisations make a commitment to this, that they really understand what they're committing to. We probably didn't do that with Funding HQ so well in the first year, maybe the second year, but definitely that's happening way better now. And as I said, we've got a little stack of organisations so that if someone falls out early, we can bring someone else on pretty smartly to make sure that we are getting the benefit.
Thank you. Further
thank
question?
you. May I, Madam Chair, through
Yes.
you, just perhaps tease this out a little bit further, and I think there's been some really good answers. Is there another way of doing this? I mean, it's great that we're upskilling the community and enabling them to apply for more funding and do it well, but is there some way that is it a set of skills that, I don't know, maybe we could train somebody at council who might be able to offer that assistance to small community organisations, for example?
And if I could just add, but it's 10% of the funding we've got available, as I understand it.
That was one question, is that something that we could consider? And the second one was, in terms of, like for the Life to the Max, for example, do we ask for them to pay it forward to other organisations to be available, perhaps to mentor other organisations?
We have said that when they, particularly when they go into the second year, then we expect them to be mentoring the other groups that are coming through.
Oh. So in regard to the first question, I did see the Chief Executive pricked up his ears.
He's writing furiously about this, I can see that. Any comment at all, David?
Through you, Madam Chair, the short answer is yes, absolutely, we can give it some consideration.
Awesome. Thank
Thank you. Councillor Fallon.
Thank you. Through the chair. One question, without referring to anything in particular. If a recommendation not to fund is in part because they haven't addressed the criteria well, in total or some of them, and it's rejected on that basis or partly on that basis, where to from there for them? If they get the feedback that they've failed to address the criteria adequately, where then is there a support mechanism for them to attempt next year to then apply better than they have for this current round?
Yes, definitely. So I would hope that particularly new applicants would come and have a conversation with me beforehand, and I can make sure that I've given them some guidance on the best way to link their applications and to fill out the forms and do all of that work. If they haven't and they are not recommended to fund, that'd be definitely would be doing that with them if they came back again, to suggest that they just come and meet with me first and actually talk about what their project is, because funding applications take a huge amount of work and time for people, and we don't want anyone filling out one that just isn't going to hit the mark at all. And so would prefer that the conversations had first. And quite often people will ring me and say, oh, I'm thinking of putting in a funding application, can we have a chat about that? Yep, let's have a chat. Well, actually no, that doesn't meet any of the criteria, so it won't fit, or I'll say yes, it does fit, let's think about how you might fill out your application.
So supplementary from that, I love this word, I heard it last week, it behooves people, I get to use that, it behooves people to access that resource from the very, very beginning, because they're actually biting their own nose off if they bypass that. It just does not serve them well. So the support is clearly there. It's up to them to the degree to which they take that support.
And yes, definitely. And once we move into what comes next from Leading Edge, which is what we did last time when we had Leading Edges, I ran some workshops. So a number of workshops at different times of the morning, afternoon, evening. So anyone that wanted to look at an application, we ran them through Leading Edge and Safer Wanganui and the application form, and we did that for a couple of years. And generally it was only the same people that kept coming back. So I haven't done it every year, but they're certainly available for people to make contact with me, and lots of them do.
Thank you. I think we're just about there to get into the recommendations, but just, Lauren, if you wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind you just clarify, I know this is not about non-contestable community contracts, but just for clarity for us and the public, would you mind just explaining that these are contestable, and what that there's another, that if you wouldn't mind that counts, I guess the whole community contract process really briefly, that there's a non-contestable fund, how much that is, and I guess possibly even name those organisations if you had it on the top of your head, but how much, if you could just give us a little bit of insight into the non-contestable funding. The large community contract group,
So the line item funding?
yes, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's not, I just, if it's not, it's okay. I just think we talk about community contracts, but we have kind of got contestable and non-contestable line item, and sometimes that one gets a little bit lost in the public's eye too. It's not a trick question.
Could you repeat the question, because I missed the first part, because I was...
I just thought if Lauren could perhaps just give a real brief overview of the line item or non-contestable community contract, the amount of that funding.
So through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to suggest that that's kind of outside of the scope of this report, and I don't think it's fair to ask Lauren to try and remember the budget lines off the top of her head without time to prepare. We can give you that information offline if you would like it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I'd quite like if council could get oversight of that at some stage, just really briefly. Okay, all right, no other further questions? All right, that's going to lead us now to the recommendations, which are on the screen there. But for those on camera, and as I believe I'm meant to, I will read through this. Obviously reasonably long recommendations. Perhaps if we put them, well, we could put them, if we put them all together or separately, do the first one. No view? Okay. So the recommendation, yeah, and then we can obviously speak to it. Community contracts, the Community Grants Funding Subcommittee, A, approves the 2023-24 funding recommendations of the Community Contracts Assessment Panel as outlined below. 1, projects of significance funding to $25,000 to the Kai Hub, it's year 3 of 3 years, and $25,000 to Woven Rivers Charitable Trust, year 2 of 3. Then we go to 2, which is a community fund, $2,000 to Alzheimer's Wanganui, $4,000 to Birthright Wanganui, $2,000 to CCS Disability Action Wanganui, $4,000 to Citizens Advice Bureau, $3,000 to Community Education Wanganui, $1,500 to Epilepsy Association of New Zealand, $2,000 to Good Bitches Trust, $7,000 to Hakiki Street Community Centre, $3,000 to Jigsaw for White Ribbon Event, $3,000 to Life Education Trust, $7,000 to Life to the Max Trust, $4,000 to Neighbours Day Aotearoa, $2,500 to New Zealand Riding for Disabled Wanganui, $5,000 to Pride Wanganui, $3,000 to Road Safety Education Limited, $4,000 to Sport Wanganui for the Mitre 10 Tough Kid, $4,000 to Te Oroho Wanganui, I gather, $2,000 to Thrive Wanganui, $2,500 to Waiora Christian Community Trust, $3,500 to Wanganui Creative Space Trust, $1,000 to Wanganui Welfare Guardians, $7,000 to Women's Network, $5,000 to Woven Whānau, $2,000 to YMCA, $6,000 to Youth Services Trust, and $10,000 to Funding IQ. I've moved that resolution, quite a long one, seconded by Councillor Oscom. Now open for any discussion, comments. Councillor Fallon.
This might sound like a Dorothy Dix, but for the benefit of those watching, those who are unsuccessful, of course they're going to get some communication, but will it be a statement or will it be a feedback about where they need to, if they wish to continue next year, where they need to address certain criteria better? Is that in the feedback?
It's a question, is it? We've finished
it's
questions.
discussion.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to
Can I
assume
rephrase
that
it?
occurs.
Thank you. Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you.
Firstly, I just want to thank you, Lauren, and the other two on the panel. I appreciate all the consideration that has gone into this funding allocation. I imagine it's a really tough role with such a small fund, with so many incredible organisations that provide such crucial services to our community and have such amazing and positive outcomes. So thank you very much, and thank you to all of the organisations that have applied through the fund. Continue doing the good mahi for our community.
Oops. Thank you, Councillor Charlotte. Yeah, I'd just like to thank you also, Lauren, and the Assessment Committee. This is, this fits well within our full wellbeings. Organisations wait for this process. I know there is lots of support there, but we know we are in an actual real cost of living crisis. So the need seems as great or greater than ever. 439 total application. 389,342 for only $100,000. So it would be very tough making these decisions. I expect there will be some, for those organisations not funded. I know Lauren will reach out to you, and for some of you, there's some other funds for those, and no one, of course, gets all they want, and many have got a lot less. But we do. I think it's the funding IQ and some of that discussion we've had about perhaps how we can possibly help more there, or even change things going forward is good. Yeah, it's just want to thank, this country relies on volunteers, and Wanganui certainly relies on volunteers. We have some amazing organisations. They do it on the smell of an oily rag, literally, and just thank you so very much. Councillor Jenny.
It's a late comment, and I apologise. I've almost not said anything, but I am sort of wondering whether or not I'm thinking of the process and whether or not it's become too distant from us. Like, we've received this recommendation, we're not discussing any of the items whatsoever. We've had some generic questions at the start. I'm just wondering whether or not we have become too distanced from it, whether perhaps there should be, I don't know what the answer is, whether or not there should be a councillor on the panel or something, but I just kind of feel like we're just a bit too distanced away from this entirely, and I've got a little degree of discomfort around it. But other than that, I absolutely do accept the considerable work and thought and effort that you guys will put into this. I know it's not easy. Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, no further speakers. So the resolution recommendations are being moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Oscom. All in favour? Aye. Against? It's carried, and I think noting that Councillor Joblin abstained from voting because of some of her conflicts. Yeah. Yes, sure.
Tried to persuade the vote or at all. This 150,000 of 75 million is 0.2% of our budget. I'm not going to comment on whether that's enough or not, rather than to say that community organisations are the glue that keep this community together, and it's entirely appropriate that we contribute to that, or that the collective of Wanganui contributes to that. I'm very satisfied with the process, although take on board what my colleagues suggested about distance. The panel that's involved in this distillation process and making these recommendations are very embedded in this community and very close to to the sector. So I have a high degree of comfort that this is a good process, albeit I think a fresh look perhaps about distance would be a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, good thoughts there. I think we can discuss that forward, important we do. And I just want to also note, I don't think, community contracts I think they were up to 300,000 contestable, some 10 plus years back. I don't think they've changed. I think it says in the paper about they got pushed, down, no doubt because of, I guess, us trying to, because of what we saw as trying to keep our, the spread of need and keeping rates down about 2012, 2014. And I've got no doubt that the conversation about increasing this will be a tough one, along with a whole lot of other needs. But I think it's an important conversation anyway, and look forward to us having that at the right time. If I could ask Kate, would you like to close with a karakia, please?
I oha ki runga ki Aoranganui, I oha ki raro ki a Papatuanuku. Wakatairanga, te kupu, te kōrero, te mahi. Ki te pō o te whare, hei taonga hi mahi amuri. Ka puta ki te wai ao, ki te ao marama. Humie, huie, taiki e.
Kia ora.